Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea from Game Informer, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. If you listened to it, I hope you enjoyed our spoiler-filled discussion about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom last week, but we are back this week talking about the latest news and some impressions of recent and upcoming games. Joining me for this first segment is Game Informer's own Marcus Stewart. Marcus, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully.
I'm glad that you were doing wonderfully. Because we have a little bit of news to cover here, and one of them is about an app that is, it plays off of something that is foundational for making sure that you are feeling wonderfully, and it just so happens to be a Pokemon story, which is Pokemon Sleep. How are you feeling about this app so far?
I swear you saved me specifically for the Pokemon stuff.
I do.
Remind me, is this the one that literally just tracks you as you sleep?
Yes.
That's like the thing.
It is the thing.
Okay. Why? I guess what's that's my question.
Everybody needs a lifestyle app at this point, right?
Sure.
I don't know. It is one of the weirder Pokemon things. There's that Pokemon game or the Pokemon app where it tracks your teeth brushing, right?
Right.
So
they just need apps for they're gonna have a Pokemon app for every aspect of just your existence.
Let's be real. Pokemon Go, all that is Pokemon Walk, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I guess that's their Fitbit. They don't have a step tracker for Pokemon yet.
And that's all. Pokewalker back in the Heart Gold Soul Silver days, that was literally a pedometer.
Oh God! See, I was just joking. I didn't know that.
Pokemon Go was just the evolution of that. No, not even pun intended there.
Well, I have to ask, if they have one thing they have to get right with Pokemon Sleep. Is Jigglypuff the main character?
No, Snorlax is, but that's also a good choice.
Yeah, I guess.
Snorlax famously asleep.
Yeah, I was hoping we get the specific Jigglypuff from the anime that would bother them with her singing and stuff.
But she would also smack the crap out of you if you fell asleep. So that
she would draw stuff on you. She wouldn't always hit you.
Sometimes she would hit you. But anyway, the news coming out of this is nothing super in depth. I was just curious of your feelings about it. All it is pre-registration is available now on Android and iOS, and there are reports floating around that it's going to be coming out later this month. I don't know. I think I'm probably going to give it a shot just to see what it's like. I guess you're supposed to put your phone by your pillow, and it tracks your sleep, and then you fill out your sleep decks or whatever. I think that's what it was. Based on how much you sleep and how often you let it track your unconscious state, then you get sleep points or something. I don't know. It's a very weird thing.
You get extra points if you dream about Pokemon. They really want to make sure you got that brand synergy at all times. Is this a free app?
I believe so. If it's not, then it's dead on arrival, right?
And also, does it have any sort of integration with the main games? Can I import Pokemon Sleep data into oh God, what's the most recent game? Scarlet and Violet?
I doubt it. I don't think there's any integration whatsoever.
Okay, I don't know what you would do with that, but I was just wondering if
Pokemon Go didn't have any integration for the first year of its existence, and then when Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out, you could integrate it with those games a little bit.
Right.
So I don't know if there's going to be any kind of integration down the line for Pokemon Sleep, but yeah, if you want to pre-register, you can do it on Android right now, and then iOS, it says stay tuned. So That's the news of Pokemon Sleep. Don't worry, Marcus. We are done with Pokemon. So we're going to move on. How you feeling about Mario Kart 8? You want to talk that game?
Yeah, that game's great. I'm always feeling good about Mario Kart 8.
We finally have the full list of courses coming to Wave 5 of the Booster Course Pass for that game. There's 6 waves. Each one has 8 courses. We already knew that Wiggler, Petey Piranha, and Kamek were being added as new characters in this course, as well as a new level called Squeaky Clean Sprint. That was all out of the Nintendo Direct that came out last month. But now we got a new trailer showing the full list. So Sunset Wilds is from Super Circuit. Daisy Cruiser is from Double Dash. We get both Moonview Highway and Koopa Cape from Wii. And then we get a trio of games from Mario Kart Tour, which is Athens Dash, Los Angeles Lap, and Vancouver Velocity. So how are you feeling about this wave?
Sounds good. I'm most interested. I don't remember, like, I can't remember the tracks from the older games very well, like the Daisy one from Double Dash, like just because
Mm-hmm.
it's been so long. But I'm most excited to play the Tour tracks. I've never played Tour, so
Yeah.
those will pretty much be brand new to me. Uh,
And they're always feeling among the best out of any wave. Because there's always the ones that I'm like least excited about because I'm like, I don't know about this. Like it's just like the courses brought over from the mobile game. But then when I play them, I'm like, oh yeah, it's obvious these are newer than the ones on like N64 or Super Circuit, you know?
right.
So
So yeah,
those are the ones I'm most looking forward to, I think. I don't have a whole lot of love for, I think Koopa Cape is the one that I recognize the most from the kind of legacy list. But Squeaky Clean Sprint, being an all new level, is one that I'm also very excited about.
yeah. I mean, hey, any new track you add to that game is going to be any more reason to fire it up. I'm happy with basically.
Played a little bit of it over the weekend with some family members, so it's always a great time. That they requested it. It wasn't like, hey, does anybody want to play Mario Kart 8? It was like, hey, you have your Switch, can we play Mario Kart? It's there's a reason it's the top selling Switch game of all time. It's
Oh
just
yeah. Did you
everybody
win?
loves Mario Kart. I did win, actually.
Did you school your family?
I did. I only came in one race, not first place, and that was because it was the least lucky I've ever been with, like getting hit with shell after shell after shell after shell, like on the final lap. It was
That'll do it.
unbelievable, but I still came in third, so I felt good about it.
Hell yeah.
But anyway, that Booster Course Pass Wave 5 is out next week, so it's coming up, and then we only have one wave after that. So I'm excited to see what they do, because I think there's still going to be 3 or 4 characters that they can add, or they're planning on adding. Because when I was looking at the character select screen, there's a bunch of question marks, and they're going to fill out 3 of them with this wave, and the final wave, I guess we're going to get new characters and also more levels. So who knows if they're going to try to end it with a bang? Like maybe they've been saving something really cool for the final wave, or maybe it's just going to be like, okay, well, here's all we have left.
I'm trying to think of who's noteworthy in Mario that isn't in that game as a racer. Because
Give us Donkey
otherwise,
Kong Jr. Give us like the original Donkey Kong from Super Mario Kart.
ooh, give
That
us Funky Kong.
Funky Kong, yes, absolutely. I mean, why not? Just give us the weirdest things possible. We went down a list when they had the Nintendo Direct, and they first announced that there were going to be characters coming in addition to the courses. And I think it was when I had Ben Hansen on. We were talking about like what characters that already are in Mario Kart, but like not Mario Kart 8 Deluxe would be the best fits. And go find that episode if you can. I know that our podcast feed only goes back about 20 episodes, but you can go on GameInformer.com and listen to that. And there's time stamped and everything, just as usual.
Hmm.
But this is a kind of a smaller story coming out of Twitter, and I'm looking at NintendoLife.com here. The news surrounds the director of Super Mario RPG's reaction to the announcement of the remake during last month's Direct. Here's his quote, which was kind of joyful. He said, quote, oh my God, finally. Both the art and music are wonderfully upgraded. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the feel of various minigames and fields evolves. And then when Fujioka, who was the director, was asked about it, he said, because somebody said, are you involved with the remake? And he said that he's, quote, very surprised and pleased with the news. So he's not involved with the remake at all. So how important do you think it is for the original creators to be involved with remakes?
I think that depends on the team that's working on it. Because if it's like the same team, then yeah, it's always. I feel like sometimes like authorship can get a little like out of hand with games because it's like it's always a team effort. Yes, there's a creative mind, but that varies depending on the game, just how much of that person is like in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know in this case. But like maybe because it's a Nintendo, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure they have faith. And if it's gonna be like closer to a 1-to-1, then it shouldn't really matter because it's like, hey, we're not like changing a ton. We're just gonna take the thing you did and make it look nicer. So we don't really need you for that. You know what I mean? In terms of
Yeah.
like the writing and like the core concepts, it's like, oh, we're just sort of like dusting it off, giving it a little tweaky tweak.
There seems to be some division on that because I don't know if you saw when Konami announced the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake.
Yeah.
And there were some people that were like, "Well, you guys pretty much showed Kojima the door, so what's the deal with this? Like, what
Yeah.
are you guys gonna do with this one?"
Yeah, see that one I'm a little more concerned just because Kojima puts so much of himself into those games, you
Hmm.
know, and even though it's a different thing, like they did Metal Gear Survive, which was like their post Kojima Metal Gear, and it just
And it wasn't good.
yeah, for a variety of reasons, but a lot of it is like it felt like they tried to replicate his like quirkiness, but it just wasn't the same, right? You know what I mean? It's like someone doing a Kojima impression almost. Um, so like with again on paper you think it should be fine. Of like, hey, if you don't fiddle with it too much, it should just be a nicer version of that game. But it just depends on how much work they do to it. It's like, are they going to take out things that are so Kojima for like almost like petty reasons?
That's so Kojima. That's my favorite Disney Channel show growing up.
I would absolutely watch a Disney Channel sitcom starring young Hideo. Like, you know how Young Rock on Peacock? Like, we need young Kojima. Like, we need the origin story of how he became the person he is.
Young Rock, where he plotted how he was going to manipulate the numbers to make it seem like Black Adam was a bigger hit than it was.
Every episode of Young Kojima is just him watching like 5 movies as a little kid and just taking notes. Like, man, I do love Escape from New York, I guess. I'm just gonna
He
watch.
loves Escape from New York. But anyway, Super Mario RPG, I don't think I'm too concerned that Chihiro Fujioka is involved or not involved with this game, because he seems happy about it. It seems like they're staying pretty loyal and faithful to the original game. And it's 27 years removed, so there's not a whole lot of people that are left that worked on the original game that are still going to be with any company, really. I mean, 27 years is a lot of people probably have retired or left the industry by that point.
Yeah, pretty much.
But anyway, that's out on Switch November 17th. Something that is not coming to Switch, but is Mario related. Early last week, we learned about a collaboration between Mario and Oreo. Did you see this news?
Yeah, Morio? Is that how we combine that? Is that the portmanteau?
My post summary on GameInformer.com, because I wrote up the story, was "It's a me, Oreo," of course.
Okay,
That was of course the whatever. We'll move on.
brilliant.
So the collaboration includes 16 unique embossments, including Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, Goomba, Bowser Jr., Superstars, and others. And the packs are filled at random, so you can't go there and be like, hey, I want the Luigi pack. And then they put out a social media challenge where they want people to see how many cookies they can stack on the rim of a glass of milk. And if you stack enough, I guess it saves Peach from Bowser's castle. And that's basically just a way for you to waste your Oreos, right?
I mean,
Like, hey, we want you to use as many cookies as you can from this special collaboration until they fall in the milk or fall on the ground, and then you have to go buy more if you want to actually eat them.
yeah, I mean, value is subjective. If you buy it specifically for that, maybe it's not a waste to you, I guess, and your dollars. I will not be doing that. I will be admiring the pretty little artwork, and then I will be putting them in my mouth and chewing Mario up because Oreos are very good.
However, did you see this? That Oreo senior brand manager, this is sweetening the pot right here, teased a surprise for a thank you for those who stack their cookies high enough.
I feel like that's how do you prove that legit in an age where it's very easy to just like manipulate photos and videos? It's like
Just go on like an AI image generation, be like, Empire State Building built out of Oreo cookies.
or like yeah, you just like make a decently tall stack of them and then just duplicate that stack and put it on top of it
Well, I think they want
like
videos.
Photoshop. Oh, they want videos. I mean,
I think
you could
so.
easily do the same thing in
Probably.
videos. But yeah, I'm like, okay, that's cool. I mean, good luck trying to parse the fakes from the real ones.
I don't think it's like anything of monetary value. I think it's probably like you get like a special video with Mario thanking you or something. I don't know.
I mean, I would take just free Oreos. I don't even need the money because Oreos are great. I had a revelation recently that I was like, I think Oreos might be the best cookie ever made.
Huh.
And the reason I say that is because I had Chips Ahoy recently for the first time in a long time. and I realize how garbage they are now. And they have been for a while, but I realized that it's because it's so easy to make your own chocolate chip cookie. Like the recipe is very simple, and it's always going to be infinitely better than a store bought chocolate chip cookie, especially Chips Ahoy. But you can't replicate an Oreo. You have to buy Oreos if you even if you make your own sandwich cookie, it's not the same. It's like there's something about the Oreo recipe that is so distinct because I've had quote unquote fancy versions of Oreos from like, like confectioners shops or whatever. And you're like, this is good, but it's not an Oreo. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like,
2 questions.
Yes.
Have you ever had the Costco chocolate chip cookies?
I have not. Like, are they sandwich cookies or chocolate chip?
They are chocolate chip cookies.
Okay, no, I haven't.
They are very good. And
I don't
2,
go to Costco very often.
Have you had the Chips Ahoy with Reese's in them?
Yeah, like a really long time ago.
Those are very good. I will go to bat for the Chips Ahoy with Reese's. But yeah, like I get what you're saying though. Like you could make a chocolate chip cookie and throw like pieces of a Reese's peanut butter cup in it, and it would probably taste pretty good as well. Oreo, it's a lot harder to replicate that, and also especially when they have these custom embossments like the Mario ones that they're talking about here.
Yeah, you would have to steal their like. It'd be like stealing like money mints, like the prints for like a counterfeit operation, so you can make your own. Like you have to break into the vault at Oreo to get the Mario mints.
Oh, God.
But it sounds like a great movie plot, personally, if someone wants to make that. It's like, we gotta make our own counterfeit special edition Oreos.
Somebody sign Nicolas Cage up for it.
There we go.
I'm gonna steal the Mario Oreo embossment.
I just want to hear him say Mario. Has he ever uttered the name Mario like publicly?
Oh God, I'm sure. I mean, we have Danny DeVito talking about Pikachu because people asked him like if he was going to play Detective Pikachu. And he's like, I don't even know what Pikachu is.
Yeah, like I just want to see him on stage just with his like Nicolas Cage draw, like Mario, Super Mario.
When he came out for Dead by Daylight, Jeff Keighley should have just said, "Say Mario." Come on. Say
Have you seen that Mario movie?
It.
What are your thoughts on Mario? Just real quick, I need to know.
Well, didn't he say like his kids were like gamers or like his
it's like
nephews or something?
Yeah, or like I don't know how many kids he has. I know he has at least a son. Like his son is the one that's like super into Dead by Daylight. That's what
okay. So that's how he got involved with it.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the Dead by Daylight developers when they heard that Nicolas Cage's nephew or son or whatever was like super into Dead by Daylight, and they were like, "That's our in. We could get Nicolas Cage in our game." And then somebody's probably like, "There's no chance Nicolas Cage is going to be a Dead by Daylight." And then fast forward like 7 months, and he's on stage at the Game Awards.
They're like, if we DM the son, like we'll look up his screen name, and then we'll send him a message to connect us to his dad. It's easy.
See, it's so easy. All right, we got one more news story here, Marcus. Last week, we learned that 4 new Genesis games were joining the Nintendo Switch expansion pack catalog. And let me know if you have any affection for any of these. So we have Revenge of Shinobi, which is a sequel to the classic side-scroller. We have Ghouls and Ghosts, which is a sequel to Ghosts and Goblins, which is known for its insane difficulty. We have Landstalker, which is one I've not heard of. That is a treasure hunting game where you play as a forest elf that solves puzzles. And we have Crusader of Senti, another one that I don't know anything about. It's an action RPG where you fight off invading monsters alongside animal companions, and you can have special abilities that include time travel. So what are these doing for you?
Those last 2, I have no idea what those are. Ghouls and Ghosts is fun, but like you mentioned, it's super hard. So it's one of those games I like attempting every, because I've never beaten it. But I'll attempt it every handful of years and be like, this is the one. I'm a pro gamer now, right? I should be able to handle this. And then you go, oh, just kidding. And then Revenge of Snow, I know I've played it on one of the 100 Genesis collections that have come out since the Genesis was around. It's not tied to the actual Shinobi series, right?
I think it is.
Is it? This is Revenge, but I know because back in the day they're like, I don't know, we'll make a similar series to try to rope in that audience. Is it? Because I like Shinobi like 1 and 2.
I could be wrong. I could be entirely wrong, but I think it is connected in some way.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any opinion of it. I know I have played it at some point and was probably like, this is okay.
The right assessment there. This is okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. These aren't going to get me to really fire up my Genesis catalog on the Switch expansion pack. By the way, I am shocked at how little I utilize the Genesis catalog on the Switch. Like
Are you
I
really?
use the Super NES one often. I use the Game Boy Advance one a decent amount. The N64 one, now that I have the controller, I use a good amount. That's how I played Majora's Mask in its entirety. And the NES one I fire up every now and then, but the Genesis one just feels like I never even touched that. And I think a lot of that is because Sonic Origins is like, this has all the games that I would want to play it's in a better version. So I don't know. I think that these they're nice to haves, but it's not anything that's going to change the game for me.
Yeah, I think my thing is that, like I mentioned before, there's been so many Genesis collections over the years that I've played most of the games on here like multiple times within the last 20 years. So the novelty isn't quite as there as something that's like, oh man, this hasn't been ported, or I haven't played this in a while. It's like, oh yeah, Golden Axe, like yeah, I've done that before in a modern setting. Same with like Comic Zone and Fantasy Star and whatever. The only game that's in there that I really do want to check out is like Castlevania Bloodlines. I've never played.
Yeah.
And that was the Genesis exclusive Castlevania. Contra Hard Corps I've never played.
Oh god. Yeah, Hardcore is that's a hard one. It's
That's
very
just
challenging.
Contra, right?
I mean, the
Is there
original
an easy Contra?
The original Contra was tough, but it wasn't that tough. I feel like Contra Hardcore, I feel like I died almost immediately when I played that game when I was younger. Like, it wasn't even like I got through the first level. There was no onboarding process, essentially.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're probably like, you've played these games, right? We don't need to teach you anything. You know you're going to die. You know the Konami code. May as well punch it in now. And try to have fun. But yeah, pretty much everything else that I've seen in here, I'm like, okay, yeah, I've played these multiple times, so
yeah, Crusader of
no
Senti seems like it might be a cool one to check out. I don't know. I was watching the trailer and it seemed like it might be fun. But those
there is
games, go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot. I've been wanting to check out Pulse Man, which is the Game Freak game that was added recently. I did want to see that.
About that, yeah.
I don't think that. I think that is like the first time. Is that the first time it's been available in the States, or has been ported in any way?
Oh,
I think that was sort of the story around. It's like, oh, this weird like forgotten oddity from Game Freak's portfolio.
Yeah, I mean that's right before they put out Pokemon, so that's like right before they truly hit it big, even though they had some mild hits before that.
Yeah, I have that in my mental like checklist of like I need to fire that up at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But these 4 games that we talked about today are available now on the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack subscription. We have 3 games that we're going to talk about here, Marcus. I'm going to talk about 2 of them. They're previews, and then you're going to give me a brief review of a game that you just published a review for. First up, Wild Card Football. This is a game that I played while I was out. Oh, actually, both of these are games I played while I was out at Summer Game Fest. The embargo lifted just this week or last week, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about it. Wild Card Football, it's an arcade-style football game that has the Players Association license. So you have all these NFL stars in it. However, they don't have the NFL license. There's no like official teams. There's no stadiums or jerseys or anything like that. So it's all like kind of like teams built around the quarterbacks. And it plays off that. It's almost like NFL Blitz meets Mario Kart is kind of the elevator pitch for this, where before each play, you kind of draw a card, and the cards have power-ups, and each power-up requires a certain amount of energy. And like the power-ups are kind of absurd. It's like there's one that really feels like it's pulled right from Mario Kart, where it's like you get balls of electricity that circle around you as you're running down the field, and like if players can hit you, then like they have to avoid the electric balls, but otherwise, like, you know, you're pretty much just invincible, almost like the red shells that go around you when you're playing Mario Kart. Right. There's one that like your player grows like a giant, like literally, like not even like, oh, he's a big human, like it's literally like
he's Jax.
It's like like Jax from Mortal Kombat. Yes, he's like almost like the size of like when Ant-Man turns into Giant Man, right?
Okay,
where it's like he's just a massive person, and you can just like it's perfect. It's basically unstoppable for like a few yards. So if you're like,
it's like he takes like 3 steps and he's in the end zone.
I mean, he's huge, so he can push, and like players will jump and try to tackle him. He just like plows them over. And there's another one where it's like if you're on defense, you can send a tornado like through the field and like hit players with that.
Okay.
And there's one that's like it spawns a bunch of like pinball bumpers all over the field. So there's another one that's like UFOs will come and abduct players that like get stuck in their tractor beams. And
Okay.
there's a
And
lot
this
of
is
like
based on a real life football league, right? This is what happens.
that's what I said. I think I was because like they had some NFL players. So they had Colin Kaepernick and they had Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Detroit Lions there. And I made a joke, and I think it kind of went over one of their heads, where I was just like, I don't know how to counter the tornado. That's only happened in like 3 times in the history of the NFL. And they just kind of laughed like, oh, what is this guy talking about?
But I'm assuming what you're saying is a true thing.
No, the tornado has never come across.
I would say, has a tornado ever hit an NFL game?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But yeah, so I had a fun time with it. Like I only played it for a little bit, but it was a really good time, and I'm excited to see how it evolves, because like I was just starting to get a sense for how the controls felt when I was like finishing up, because like it plays different from Madden, and like the controls are different from Madden, but like it's such an arcade experience. Like it really does feel like NFL Blitz and like NFL Street, like that lineage, but then Mario Kart style power-ups. So that's one I'm looking forward to. That comes out in October, and that's on Switch and pretty much every major platform. And then
That sounds cool.
yeah, I mean, if you like kind of like the arcade style sports games,
I do.
This one seems like it would be up your alley. And then there's Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged. And this one is just a sequel to the game that came out, I think, in 2020. And this one adds more vehicles, like more than 130 vehicles. They all have more customization options. Like you can make like custom liveries. I think that's how you pronounce it. Maybe liveries. I don't know. I'm not good at pronouncing that word. But like also like you have new moves, like you can jump, you can strafe, and that helps with like kind of battling alongside the opposing racers. And then there's also new course customization options. So they already had course customization, and it was very successful in the first game. This one, they're upgrading the suite of stuff. There's a new way to acquire new vehicles, which was nice, because it was kind of a crapshoot in the earlier game. This time, like there's like a shop that you can use to spend in-game currency, and there's also like a kind of like a spin that you can like get cars like through random methods that way. And they were very adamant. They're like, yeah, but in those modes, there's no microtransactions, so you don't have to worry about that. So that was good to hear. And the racing just feels better. It feels more well tuned. It feels like they've learned a lot of lessons from the first game, and they're doing a lot of really cool stuff with it. And you can upgrade the cars individually. So like if you want to pour some resources into your favorite car, you can reconfigure it to be better at certain things. Like, and each car has like a different classification. Like this one's like good for straightaways. This one's good for off-roading. And yeah, I had a good time with it. The first few races that I did when I was out at Summer Game Fest, and I'm thinking this is going to be a good racing game for people who are looking for something that's not Mario Kart on their Switch.
Yeah, I liked that first game more than I thought I would. I think that's probably the wrap for most people, like that didn't really expect much from him. You playing like, oh, this is actually a pretty solid arcade racer. And I also remember it being surprisingly difficult. Like the AI was like
ruthless,
tough. Yeah, like I was like, oh my god, I'm getting like 4th, 5th place like consistently, and I feel like I'm doing pretty good.
And they said that was one of the other improvements. They further fine-tuned the AI, and it's a little bit more fair now, because even when I played it before announcement, they gave me a playable build for the first game before it was even announced. And I was like, oh my God, the AI is just destroying me. And they were like, oh yeah, don't worry, we're going to fix that before the game goes out. And they did, but it wasn't enough. Like they definitely did not address it.
They tweaked the slider down by 1.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That is coming out on October 19th, and that's on Switch and all the other major platforms. But Marcus, we're going to wrap up this news segment by talking about a game that you reviewed recently that is on Switch now, but it's also on other platforms, which is, you reviewed it, I think, on PlayStation. That is AEW Fight Forever. Talk to me about this game.
Yeah, it's pretty solid, but there's not enough there. That's probably like the condensed version of my review. I gave it a 6.25 out of 10. And, the big thing with this game was like they were saying, hey, remember No Mercy? Hey, remember those WCW N64 games, the Aki developed ones? Like, we're going to do that. And it's going
Those
to
were
be
my
awesome.
favorite wrestling games of all time. Were those WCW NWO games? So what
Yeah.
was it
Like
WCW
Revenge,
World Tour and then
World Tour,
WCW NWO
Revenge.
Revenge. Yeah, Revenge
Yeah.
was my jam back in the day.
Oh, that game's great. And same with like No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000. Like, they all shared that same like gameplay engine. A lot of people hold those games in high regard, deservedly so. And so, like, it was exciting to hear AEW talk about we're gonna go do one of those. And Kenny Omega, who was like a big sort of like part of like this game's creation. He's a huge gamer himself and has cited those games as like some of his favorites ever. So you're like, okay, like that'd be cool, like just to have a nice alternative to the WWE 2K series, which are very like sim heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the two most recent ones, they've scaled that back a little bit, just make them a little more, I guess, not arcadey, but like not as mechanically dense.
That was after
Um,
kind of they reworked it after what was it 2020 that was just a disaster?
yeah,
Or was it 20?
2K20 was a bad game.
And then they took a couple years off, right?
Yeah,
And now they're back, and they seem like they reworked it more towards kind of the at least a little less sim heavy.
yeah, they definitely absorb some of the feedback, and that's kind of an unfortunate thing for AEW of like when this was first pitched, because this game was announced in like fall of 2020, so it's been around almost as long as the AEW has existed as a company, because they kickstarted in 2019. And at the time, well, again, that pitch was so compelling because you're like, oh man, I'm tired of these WWE games because 2K20 was bad and now they're on a hiatus and who knows if they're going to come back strong. So, like, this might be a breath of fresh air. And unfortunately, it's bad enough that this game is like pretty like underwhelming, but it also came out in a year where the most recent WWE game actually reviewed pretty well. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like they had all the time when the games were bad, and then when they finally come out and their game is lacking, and then their main competition finally got their act together.
I know,
So,
yeah. It's like if only this came out in 2020.
right? You're just like, oh, you missed the boat.
Or
But
when
yeah,
when they were on hiatus, right? Like that would have been perfect.
yeah, and games take a while, so it's like it probably wasn't gonna hit that anyway. But I mean, because this was made by Ukes, who was the long-time developer of WWE. In fact, they left during 2K20's development, like midway through, which is one of the reasons that game wound up being a disaster.
Mm.
But yeah, so it wasn't like they didn't get anyone. It's like they got, in a weird way, they got the spiritual successor to the old pairing of Ukes and THQ. In this case being THQ Nordic that published it, which THQ and Ukes. People remember seeing those names anytime you booted up a SmackDown game or SmackDown versus Raw and stuff. So it's almost like a weird, like the band's back together, sort of, kind of. And I will say the gameplay, it is mostly fun. Like it does feel pretty good with some exceptions. Like it feels snappier. Like the inputs feel easier. Like because like the No Mercy and WCW games, it's all about building momentum to earn a finisher, and then you can use that finisher, or you can turn signatures into finishers, and you can also beat the finishers out of people because when you start taking too much abuse, you lose your stored up power ups. There's also like buffs for doing different things, like you
Buff
do a lot of
Bagwell?
strikes. Yes, Buff Bagwell, he's back. His real name is Marcus, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, Marcus Bagwell. It's one
I
of the
don't I
few
don't
Marcuses in wrestling that I know of.
I don't know why I had such a reaction to that.
Yeah, he's a Georgia boy. But
Congratulations.
shout out to Buff Bagwell, big fan of the show. Maybe, but yeah, and like hitting a finisher is as simple as just like flicking the right stick, and generally like grappling and moving around. Like it feels pretty good. I don't know if it quite has the same snap as like No Mercy, but it's not terribly far off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There are some like AI issues. Like I think the AI can be questionable, especially during tag team matches. I think the tutorial system or lack thereof is a problem because even though this is an easier pick up and play game, there's some essentials that you don't really learn until you kind of mess around. And the only real thing that they have to teach you are these tool tips that only appear when you play a match for the first time, or if you're playing the story mode, it shows up kind of sporadically and at points that don't make sense. Of like, I was playing the main story mode and they're like, I don't know how to target people. And I'm in these tag team matches where I have two opponents that I need to be able to snap to at any time. And I feel like I'm targeting the guy that's outside the ring and not the person that's actively attacking me. And after doing multiple of those in a row, I got to like my first like triple threat. And then a window popped up saying like, hey, this is how you target. And it's like, I don't know why that wouldn't be earlier.
Why didn't you lead with that?
Or like WWE does, where the first time you boot up a 2K game, you have to go through a tutorial before you do anything.
Yes.
And it just stands out more when you take that into account, as well as just how good fighting games have gotten in general with tutorials. Like Street Fighter 6 has an excellent tutorial system.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, to not really have anything is a problem, because I was like bumbling around trying to figure out like, how do I do this basic thing in this game, and trying not to do it the WWE way. But that aside, gameplay, it's like a really strong start. Like, I hope they get a chance to iterate on it. The roster is pretty thin. It's only like under 60 competitors total, and it's like pretty unbalanced because it's like 36 guys and only 13 women, and that includes referee Aubrey Edwards, a friend of the show, who's, I mean, she only recently competed in her first match, but it's like, she's a referee. Like, there's a lot of women you could throw in here. I don't know. How is there only 13? And it's cool that you can do intergender matches for like everything. Like, you can pair the men and the women against each other in any match. But I feel like that might have been just to sort of make up for like the lack of matchup diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like AEW has a giant roster, so it's like I don't expect every person to be in here, but it's still just thin. It's like there's some they got like the core guys, or most of them, but there's still like some pretty big names that just did not make the cut. Like and there's some DLC coming, but there's only like 6 superstars total. But you're like, oh, there's no Samoa Joe, there's no Jamie Hayter, the Acclaimed isn't here, like all these other guys that you know and love, Brian.
I know all those people.
Yeah, you've been to one AEW show, so
I have been.
You're qualified somewhat for this conversation, you know?
I know there's those guys who come out of the jungle, and there's that song that they play that I really like.
Yeah, they broke up.
Oh, okay. Well,
and actually the
AEW's dead to me.
Yeah, and actually the one that had the song just stopped using it because he's a bad guy now. And he straight up told us on the microphone that we're never going to hear that song again. So, because we liked it too much.
that was fun when they came out and everybody was singing,
waving
along.
Their arms and stuff. Yeah, that's done. I'm afraid
that was my one moment of crowd participation.
But yeah, so like the roster is pretty weak. The match types not a ton. It's kind of like your standard like singles, doubles, triple threat, fatal 4-way, ladder match. And it's got like the 2 of the AEW staples like Casino Battle Royale and Exploding Barbed Wire Death Match. Though they did just announce a free update today as we're recording that they're adding Stadium Stampede in a free update. But there just still isn't quite enough there. And then other than that, there are these mini games that are just bad. They're kind of fun in terms of how silly they are. Like there's like a rhythm music one where you're kind of doing Simon Says, matching like prompts to follow a beat. So you see like a line of wrestlers like doing almost like YMCA poses trying to match another wrestler. But it's like you do it once and you never want to do it again, basically.
At least they're trying something different. Like that's what you can tell or can say for them.
Yeah, it's like this isn't good, but I appreciate the attempt. And then the only other thing is like the main story mode, which is called Road to Elite. It's very short and it's just very bland and kind of bare bones. You're just kind of playing through one calendar year of AEW, which translates in the game to 16 weeks, 4 pay-per-views. It just isn't, there's just not enough there. You're just kind of playing matches and you get a couple of like very, very punctuated versions of like old storylines from like 2 years ago, like the Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle, for example. You're only chasing a couple of titles, one of which is the FTW Championship, which isn't even a recognized title in the company. It's kind of more like a gimmick prop belt. So you're like, oh, the TNT Championship's right there. We're not going to use that one? Okay.
They'd have the TNT license then.
I mean, it's TNT's show, like technically. I
I
mean,
have no idea
I
how
don't
the
know how that
licensing
works, I
works.
guess, but it's kind of like can't use that. Uh, the thing that also in between the matches, you're encouraged to do these kind of like slice of lifestyle activities where like, hey, you got to go to the gym to work out so you can earn stat points, and you got to go sightseeing, and you got to go eat, and that stuff is just so it's kind of goofy because there's like a few just bizarre moments where you're running into wrestlers like I'm gonna go visit the Washington Monument or something because I'm in DC, or for Minneapolis, uh there's a Game Informer reference where one of the restaurants is called Grub Informer, and they specialize in Juicy Lucy's.
That's perfect.
And
That's
then the site,
amazing.
yeah. And then the sightseeing tour is like one of the 10,000 links. I don't remember the name. It had a long name that was like, I don't know how to pronounce that, but I assume that's a popular lake in Minnesota.
Is
uh,
it Bitamakaska?
sure. I don't know.
I mean, that's like one of the most prominent lakes in Minneapolis. It used to be called Lake Calhoun, but they changed it because there was some
Wait, they
news.
changed it from Calhoun to the longer,
Well,
more complicated name?
it was because of the actions of the man it was named after.
Oh, he's a bad person. Gotcha.
Yes.
I was gonna say like that's not like we made this harder to pronounce. uh, okay. Also the weird, and this is showing like the game's. It's weird to say like the game has a low budget feel because again you're like THQ isn't like a. It's not like this is an indie studio or an indie publisher, right? But it just there's just like a lack of polish and presentation and like the visuals and just some of the like bells and whistles where like a lot of the sightseeing locations are literally just like it looks like stock photographs that are like out of focus and like zoomed in, and your character's just kind of walking in front of it, almost like they're walking in front of like an old timey movie set where it's just like hey, this outdoor scene is actually just like a picture on a piece of like a big board, basically. But like worse than that because of how out of focus it is. And I was just like, and then the world map is like, it is a 3D model, but it is the most like I'm not exaggerating when I say it is, but I think it might be like a PS1, maybe early PS2 looking world map where like it's just these really blocky buildings with like flat textures and almost to the point where like did we need to see an animation of a plane flying city to city if it looks this bad? Maybe this should have just been a load screen, because the game loads super fast, at least on PS5. So it's like, yeah, we don't really need to see this if it's gonna look this rough.
Well, I mean, hopefully the age-old like reason for why these games, this especially like kind of like sports games such as this are weak in their early iterations is because they have all these grand ambitions but they can't get them all into the first entry, and like this is kind of laying the groundwork, and hopefully future games, if they get a chance to make another AEW game, will be what people are actually wanting, because it sounds like it's a good start but it just falls short in almost every area.
Yeah, like the creation mode is bare bones. There's barely anything to really mess with to make people, which is
Which
always
that's
like,
important in a wrestling game.
oh yeah, like that's people spend hours in there. Like you can't trade superstars online or do anything like that, so that's not worth messing around with. And yeah, like I'm very curious to see how this game sells. It'll be indicative of like because AEW's getting popular and popular. I mean, they're about to sell out Wembley Stadium for
Wow.
next month for their first ever UK show. Uh, and that's not a small stadium.
No, that's a huge stadium.
Yeah, and they're apparently doing really well selling that out. So like the brand's getting more popular, and they're still a young brand. They've been around like barely 3.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I hope that I hope that it sells well enough, like you said, to get another game, because I think the gameplay foundation is there. It's just like everything around it needs to catch up to it.
That makes sense. Well, you gave it a 6.25 on your review at GameInformer.com. Go check that out if you want to learn more. I'm assuming there's also a new gameplay today. Am I right in that?
No, we don't have one.
Okay, well, forget that because that doesn't exist. All of your conversational discussion about this game is found right here on All Things Nintendo. Is there a segment
Yeah.
on the Game Informer show?
There is. We talked about
Okay.
it last week.
Well, there you go. If you want to hear more, you can go listen to that episode of the Game Informer show. It's our other podcast that we have. You likely already know about it if you're listening to this show, but if not, go check it out. Marcus is one of the hosts over there alongside our next guest, who is Kyle Hilliard, and also Alex Van Aken. But before we usher you out of here, Marcus, tell people where they can find you on social media.
Hey, you can find me on Twitter if you've decided to stay there, at Marcus Stewart 7, which is the number 7.
We are going to take our first break of this episode, and when we come back, Kyle Hilliard is going to join me to talk about one upcoming high-profile Switch game and one that just came out. We will be right back. Prior to the Nintendo Direct, there were 2 games on Nintendo's first-party schedule, and those 2 games are precisely what this main segment is going to be all about. Kyle Hilliard, who joins me now, has been playing the hell out of Pikmin 4, and I spent a chunk of my 4th of July weekend playing Everybody 1-2 Switch. First up, Kyle, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm good. I'm curious to see who has been having more fun. Yeah.
Well, we're going to start with yours, because yours is just undeniably the bigger entry of these 2 games. So I know you can't give a full review quite yet, but what can you tell us about your time with Pikmin 4 so far?
Oh, I can tell you the file size of the game. It's 30 gigabytes. That's always on our sort of like preview guidelines. Which
a little peek behind the curtain. Nintendo is very meticulous with their embargoes.
Which I think is funny, but also I think it is a thing that people do want to know, genuinely, that it's 30 gigabytes, which still is like just such a mind-blowing thing that these Nintendo games are so freaking small.
It's incredible, but it's also, you have to, because it's not like the Switch has like a 500 gigabyte internal hard drive.
Right, yeah, but yeah, to that point, I mean, Pikmin looks and plays really great. I can talk about like the first 2 levels, and you know what I played of that so far, and like it looks great. It feels great. I think we're going to talk about it more, but I played through Pikmin 1 recently for the first time. Like I had dabbled in Pikmin 1, I played and beat Pikmin 2, played and beat Pikmin 3, and then went back and played Pikmin 1 recently, like when it released on Switch. Mm-hmm. And it was really actually very nice to kind of play Pikmin 1, which is a game that I like, turns out I did enjoy and I liked and I had a good time with. But to actually see the sort of upgrade from 1 to 4 was cool, because like Pikmin follow you so much better. It's so much easier to throw them and manage them in specific places, right? Like in Pikmin 1, they're always getting like stuck on corners, and like you lose like 3 or 4 here and there, and then the day's over, and you can see them on the map, so like you know where to go find them, but it's just like it's like too late. So you just have a lot more Pikmin die on you in Pikmin 1, and that's always a bummer. But Pikmin 4, they like stay with you so much better, and like you really like, I really only lost Pikmin to bosses. Like that was basic, or rather so far, you know, I've only lost Pikmin to bosses. And that's nice, because like that's one thing that's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way about Pikmin, is like some of these creatures have to die to succeed, and that's like seems to still be the case here, but it's much cleaner and works better this time.
So how is that juxtaposition? You know, you talked about a couple of like the ways that the gameplay has improved from Pikmin 1 to Pikmin 4, but you know, what is that, like a 20 years difference at this point?
Oh God. Yeah, geez. I can look. When did Pikmin 1 come out? I want to look that up. Because I played it like on a friend's GameCube, like on a few occasions. 2001 is when Pikmin
22 years between
and like
these games.
I remember like the thing that really turned me off was like when I really sat down to play it and saw how mechanically how it worked, the timer, which you only have 30 days to complete Pikmin 1, was kind of grueling for me. Like it was just too intense and intimidating, and I did not like it. And then another time I played it, I remember I had a friend who was like a little bit further into the game, and I had a collection of red Pikmin, and I walked just into a pond, You know, I didn't know how the game worked, and like 30 of them died like immediately, and I was just like, this is brutal. I don't like
What have you
this. Like,
done?
it made me feel terrible. But I like Pikmin 4 takes care of those things much better. There is no 30-day timer, and you know, if they get in the water, you can call them back before they die. I mean, you can still drown Pikmin if you're a sicko and you want to do that, but it's a little bit harder for you.
Well, as we've seen with Tears of the Kingdom, nobody wants to hurt or harm any of these helpless characters.
Well, these ones do die, though, right? Like, the Koraks are immortal, as near as we could tell. You can do anything you want to them, and they'll survive. But Pikmin, you throw a red Pikmin into a lake and don't call him back, he drowns pretty quickly, which is a bummer.
So what are these 2 stages that you can talk about like? Like, what are you doing in these stages?
So that's like pretty typical Pikmin gameplay. Let's see, what are they called? There's the Blossom Arcadia and the Sun Speckled Terrace. And you have a day, right? You have a timer when you fall into these areas where you I don't know, I think the in-game time, I think it's like 20 minutes or something, right? Is like that's about how long you have in each area. And in that time you have to gather Pikmin, create new Pikmin, pick up treasures and fight enemies, and then carry their corpses back to your base to like receive energy. Is truly what the mechanics of the game are. And in the past, that little sub timer bothered me, but now I've kind of grown to like, I don't know, I would even go so far as to say that I like it. Like, it's nice to kind of like have the day to sort of look around and explore and see things that are like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get that today, I'm going to put that off tomorrow. And then it is satisfying to come back the next day and be able to complete it, and that kind of thing. But on a sort of mechanical level, the game is structurally similar to past Pikmin, but I just think it like plays better and looks better. And then you have Ochi. Like, Ochi is the big change for Pikmin 4. It's this dog that's with you, that you can train to like get smarter and be stronger and stuff like that. And Ochi functions initially as basically like a 10 Pikmin. Like, he covers, if there's something that's like needs 7 Pikmin to pick up, you can send Ochi to go pick it up for you, and he'll carry it back to your base
helpful.
for you. Yeah, and which is like, I was like, okay, that's cool, that's nice, I guess. But the big like advantage of Ochi is you can just with a button press like gather yourself and all your Pikmin to jump on his back, and that just makes it so much smoother and more fun to play, frankly, because as cool as it looks to have a group of like 50 Pikmin following you around, like they're hard to manage. Like, it's hard to walk through a hallway or over a bridge if you have this big group of Pikmin with you. But with Ochi, they're just all clumped together. Like, it almost makes all the Pikmin feel like one playable character. And it just makes like traversal so much smoother, and it makes like just gathering everything so much smoother. Like, initially, when I was like, as I've been playing early on, I kind of almost felt like I was cheating with Ochi by like calling all the Pikmin to me. Like, I just always ride around with all the Pikmin on Ochi. And like, the more I play, the more I'm like, I'm just going to always do that. It's really rare that there's an advantage to keeping the giant group of the cavalcade of Pikmin nearby, if that makes sense. Like, it's just easier to have them on top of Ochi. There are puzzles where you have to separate from Ochi, but those are about the only instances where I'm not just like, me and the Pikmin are not riding around on his back. So Ochi is like, early on is like a big change, a big positive change. And it's like one of those things, I have no idea if there's going to be a Pikmin 5 in the future, but it's like one of those mechanics where it's like, if Ochi's not in a future Pikmin, like if Ochi's not a big part of Pikmin 5, like that would feel like a step back after this entry.
That's another thing, though, that like kind of shines a light on everything that has happened with the Switch, right? Where it's like, all right, Smash Brothers, how are they ever going to do another Smash Brothers without blank, without all the characters?
Right, yeah.
How are they ever going to do a Mario Kart with less courses and characters? How are they going to do another Zelda game without Ultra Hand? Like, it seems like there's a trend of like, all right, well, the Switch has had like kind of, if not the best entry, then they're at least some of the definitive entries in these long running series. and I know you're not able to render a verdict on Pikmin 4 just yet, but you're saying something that is reminiscent of a lot of these long running franchises that have entries on Switch, where it's like, how are they going to do another entry without blank?
Yeah, yeah, and that feels, and that's like to be fair, like you can say that about a lot of like sequels and entries, and usually the answer is like, well, yeah, that mechanic just goes forward, or they find something new, right, to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean it's the next Pikmin, Nintendo's smart, they could do something different, and I'm sure they would figure out something cool. But it just like it feels like such a strong like new thing that it's like, that's like, okay, this was a great idea and it's implemented well, and it makes it already like a step above the previous.
Now let me turn that back around. Do you see it being more difficult to go back to Pikmin 3, 2, or 1 after playing 4 just because of Ochi?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's hard to, because like I can't do that yet, but I bet it would be. I mean, to be fair, like those games, were designed without Ochi. They were meant to be played and beaten without Ochi. There are elements in Pikmin 4, even early on already, that I can tell, like it's like, oh, they designed this with Ochi in mind. So like, in one sense, maybe you would go back and not miss him, but like the big thing is just like moving around. Like I imagine if I went back even to 3, a game that I enjoyed and played when it came out, I bet just walking around without him, I would feel kind of naked.
So prior to Pikmin 4, what was your favorite Pikmin?
Oh, gosh, good question. Maybe 2, because 2 had I remember having a good co-op mode, and I played it with a friend. But it's funny, I don't remember specific. It was a long time ago, man. Like that was like early college, I think I was playing Pikmin 2. But yeah, probably 2 for that reason. But 3 was the one that I was like all in on, and like when it came out, I played and beat it, right, if that makes sense. Like that was the game I was playing right when it came out, and I finished it. 2 was one more that I just dabbled with a friend over a long period of time, if that makes sense. And then 1 I truly played for the first time like 2 weeks ago. So 3 looks the best and probably plays the best, but I think in terms of like just positive memories, it probably 2, just because it had a good system for playing with a friend.
Do you think that? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and 4 does have a simple co-op mode, which is like more in line with like Mario Odyssey's co-op mode. I don't know if you ever dabbled with that, but it's like, it's really more for like if you have a young player with you, if you have a kid or something, they can kind of help out. That's sort of Pikmin 4's co-op mode.
Gotcha. Okay. And a lot of people, Nintendo specifically, has seemed to indicate this is a good jumping on point for people who may have not played a Pikmin game in the past. And you know what? I am largely that person. I've played a little bit of Pikmin 1, but that's about it. What is your recommendation to somebody like me in terms of, from what you've played of these first 2 levels?
Oh yeah, I mean, initially, like I'm pretty much always going to be a proponent of like play the latest version, if that makes sense. Like I'm not one to be like, oh, you can't play the first, you can't play the third game if you haven't played the first and second game. Go play those first. Like I'm always going to be like, yeah, just play the new one.
Can't play Ocarina of Time without playing Zelda NES.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom. It's like, just jump into Tears of the Kingdom. Don't worry about Breath of the Wild. Just play the newest thing. And like, and that, I think that's true here. Like I think, I mean, it's nice that Pikmin 1, 2, and 3 are now all on Switch. It's nice that the whole series is available on Switch. Like, I'm kind of tempted to, because I have 1 and 2 now, and I played 3 on Wii U. I'm almost kind of tempted to go just pick it up, just to have, we'll permanently have it, like all 4 games available in my Switch library. But
permanently, that's a bold word to use for that.
Yeah, good point. Well, if I go buy the physical copy of Pikmin 3, I can probably still find those.
I'm sure they're out there somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think 1 and 2 got physical releases.
I don't think so either. I think, well, man,
I still go physical pretty much. If I have the option, I still always go physical.
Really, even on a portable console?
Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, I just like
Wow.
because I have I live in a house with two other people who have Switches. And it's like I mean this is a whole other side tangent, but like I don't like a digital library that is completely out of my hands. Like Nintendo could, any company, right? Like Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, the places I watch movies online, I use Vudu a lot.
Hmm.
Um, those libraries could be recalled at any moment. Like if they decide it's not profitable for them, it's not like they're going to refund me all my purchases. Like they could just disappear at any moment.
Yeah. So for a while, like I had a similar experience where like I was using Movies Anywhere,
Yeah.
and I guess like their licensing with anything you bought on iTunes just disappeared, because I was like on there with like looking for my John Wick movies, and I was like, why? I know I own these movies on digital. Why can't I find them? And then I was like, oh, well, none of my Apple purchases are on here. So I had to go on the Apple TV app. It's not a huge deal. It's just like,
No,
okay, well,
yeah.
that's an example of when these licenses can expire. I mean, we just saw it with a bunch of Disney Plus stuff and Netflix stuff. It's like a bunch of movies are being removed. Not that, hopefully they're not going to revoke your purchases, but it's still something that we have to be conscious of.
Yeah.
But I agree with
You're
you there.
borrowing a
But
license. You're renting a license long term. You're not making a sort of purchase, which is why I still like if it's my favorite movie, I'll still go buy Blu-ray. And if it's a video game, I will go get the disc or the cartridge.
wow, that's dedication, especially since you have to download a lot of stuff usually in order
I
to get a
know.
game
I
to
mean,
work.
we do have the advantage, you and I, of working at a job where we get a lot of games sent to us. But there are occasions where, if I'm like, I went and bought physical copies of Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I'm not gonna not have that game physically, even though, Nintendo was nice enough to send me a code to review it.
Yeah. So wrapping up this Pikmin 4 conversation, we are going to have another one in the future
Oh,
when you can.
wait, real quick. On that topic of recommendation, right? Like, what should you play Pikmin
Mhm.
4? Like, there's a Pikmin 4 demo available now that I think even has a lot of the content like I'm talking about here, like early game, and the progress does go forward. So,
God, I
like,
love that.
if you're interested in Pikmin, like, play the Pikmin 4 demo. Don't even worry about 1, 2, and 3. Just play the 4 demo.
I feel like Square Enix is the innovator in that. Like just as Nintendo was kind of the innovator of like the digital press conference instead of doing like a live press conference, Square Enix was kind of the one that was like, hey, what if we put out these demos that their progress carried forward? I feel like Bravely Default was the first one that I remember it doing that and being like, oh, that's really
Oh,
cool. And now
yeah.
a lot of other developers are doing it. And it's like gotten to the point where I won't play a demo unless I know that the progress is going to carry forward.
Yeah, same. It's just
Just feels like
wasted
a waste of
time.
time.
Yeah.
So wrapping up the Pikmin 4 conversation here, and again, we are going to have a more in-depth, or at least more in summary conversation in a couple weeks here when you can talk about review. Miyamoto this has been his baby since it came out, and he has been constantly like talking about how much he loves Pikmin. And Pikmin's even the sole non-Mario franchise that makes an appearance in Super Nintendo World. If you go to Universal Studios, you can
Oh, is that
find
right?
some Pikmin hanging around.
That's cool.
So, do you understand the hype and the love that he has for this? Like, or is it just kind of like this is 100% my baby, and I think it's a great idea? Or do you see what he sees in it?
I think it's probably a little bit of the former, I guess, right? Where it's like Miyamoto is very important to Nintendo. They look to him for a majority of sort of creative decisions. He created Mario and Zelda, and I think Pikmin is just another one that he's particularly passionate about that he truly created.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's not, it is. I'd have to, maybe this will be a future ranking for you of just like Nintendo franchises. I wouldn't put it above a lot. Like it would kind of be low on my list of, favorite Nintendo sort of characters and franchises. You got Mario and Zelda and Kirby and like Star Fox and stuff like that. Like I only recently admitted to myself that I'm a Pikmin fan, if that makes sense. Like I played 2 with a friend and we enjoyed it, but I was always kind of like, but yeah, I'm not. It's kind of a strategy. It's kind of an RTS. It's kind of like if
It is.
Nintendo made an RTS, and it's like I don't really like RTS. And Pikmin 3, I played and beat, and like by the end, the end boss of that game I actually found quite frustrating. So it kind of like left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. And I was like, yeah, I like Pikmin, but I'm just not a big RTS guy. And this is ostensibly Nintendo's RTS. And truly, it wasn't until like, 2-3 weeks ago now, maybe a month ago, that I played Pikmin 1 on Switch and like played it and finished it and enjoyed it. And have now started playing Pikmin 4, where I'm kind of like, you know what? I do like this. And it's silly of me to sort of like always have a qualifier that it's like, yeah, Pikmin's fine, but it's not my favorite thing. Or it's like, after playing 1 and now, playing 4, I'm like, I do like Pikmin. This is a good series. And I don't know why I fought it for so long.
And
But
to
it's
be
not
fair,
like, it's not like one that I'm over the moon for, right?
to be fair, if you're ranking franchises of any publisher or developer, Nintendo is about as big of a murderer's row as you can get.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I think if you count, like, all right, well, Square Enix is all one developer and Nintendo is all one developer. I think Nintendo easily has like the best video game lineup in any developer's history.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably true. How are Pikmin implemented in the park? Are
They're
they
just
like
hanging around? There's like you'll look up at a question block and there'll be a Pikmin hanging on one of them.
Okay, see, that's like, yeah, I wonder if it's even just a matter of like that is a great function for Pikmin, right? When you sort of thinking about a theme park and like they have a lot of cool sort of things to look at, Pikmin just fit into that really well because it's like, yeah, there's always dozens of them. They're always hiding around places. Like it's just fun to place them. You know
It's
what
just
I
like
mean?
an Easter egg for Nintendo fans, I think. And then for people who
Yeah.
don't know, people are just there at Universal Studios wanting to go visit it, and they just look up and they're like, "Oh, what are those things?"
Like if they're gonna do Zelda, like they gotta go big, right? You either go all in on Zelda. You don't just put Zelda Easter eggs, right? You don't just put Star Fox Easter eggs. You have to go big with those. Where Pikmin is like the fun of it is like, oh, they're tiny little creatures that are hiding in the crevices. So let's hide them in the crevices,
Yeah. I mean, I would love a Zelda world. I think that it would
Oh,
have
of
to be
course.
almost
Yeah.
like Nintendo makes their own theme park a la Disney. It's not like this is just a corner of Universal Studios, especially the one in LA and the one in Hollywood is so much smaller than the one in Osaka.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's night and day, and I don't know where they would even build like more stuff in that Hollywood lot than they already have.
Yeah. I mean that's what it would take, right? It would take like a full expansion. It's not like, oh, we're gonna change out this one section. Like they would be like, we're adding a Zelda section. That's what it would have to be.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think we're going to get a Pikmin world anytime soon. So yeah, you're right. That is a good utilization of the Pikmin characters. So yeah, Pikmin 4's out in just a couple of weeks. But I played a very different game from what you played, Kyle, over the 4th of July holiday. And that was Everybody 1-2 Switch.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about this.
This came out last Friday, and we did not get early code, which is sometimes a bad sign for a game. I know it made me concerned, but I will say that I didn't. Full disclosure, I never played the first one because Jeff Marchiafava, former Game Informer editor and current MinMax contributor, he just railed on it. He said that the first one was terrible. It was an awful launch game, and it just wasn't that fun. And from what I saw when people were playing it around the office, it didn't look very fun.
Yeah, I think did we talk about it here on All Things Nintendo? Like I always felt a little bad for Jeff Marchiafava because we had the new fancy exciting Nintendo hardware and I was playing Zelda, right? And I was like, this I may be playing one of the best games ever made. And then I would look over at Jeff, I'm just like scowling, like
trying to milk a cow with a Joy-Con.
Yeah, just like, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry.
Well, I've not put in enough time into Everybody 1-2 Switch just yet to like put a review or anything like that. It's very difficult to wrangle a family. How many people were even there? My brother's family is 5, 3 of which are very little kids.
Yeah, I was about to ask like what was the sort of the age range?
Yeah, so there were 10 people.
Okay.
At my parents' house, and I could only ever wrangle 4 people at a time at most. So I played a couple of games with me, my partner, and my parents, and then one game with just me versus my brother, 1-on-1. and it was fun overall. I will say that there
Okay.
were some things that do not work very well. There's one game in particular where you're trying to do like you're trying to like summon an alien, and in order to do that you have to do these specific motions, whether it's with your phone or with your Joy-Con. So that kind of leads us into how the structure is of this game. So the first 1-2 switch is very much based around the capabilities of the Joy-Con. This has two modes. There's Joy-Con mode and there's smart device mode.
Right.
So
Okay.
Joy-Con mode, it's up to 8 players. Everybody has a single Joy-Con. And the games are all based around that. So there's one where you hold like the shoulder buttons and you're pumping up a balloon and you're trying to get it as full as possible, as close to like the breaking point without popping it. And whoever gets the closest to like maximum capacity gets the points. And then there's another one where it's like a samurai thing, where it's like you each hold your Joy-Con like a samurai sword, and then like they'll say draw, and everybody swings their samurai sword, and whoever does it the fastest gets it. And then there's even one that's just like a quiz show where it's like true or false, and then you press Y or I guess it's Y or A. Yeah, I always get the buttons confused.
Yeah, I mean, it's
because of
right. It's kind of inconsequential to me.
the
but
left
yeah.
face button or the right face button.
Yeah, I
true or
use
false.
cardinal directions sometimes. I'll be like north button, north button.
Yeah, I'm just so used to like the Xbox controller, the PlayStation controller, the Switch controller. It's hard to remember which one's which. But the left face button or the right face button for true or false.
Right.
And whoever answers it faster. And it's very easy questions, but it's funny because like, it was like there are, the opposite of north is, and you would be like, and it would say like west, and you would say false. And whoever says it fastest gets the point. But because of that, like, my brother and I both got it right away for like the first two. And it's like, all right, it all comes down to this one. It's double points. And, like a Jackbox type experience, that like if it's double points, then the other ones barely even matter. So
right. Yes. Yeah.
It came down to the last one. And it was like the month that comes before August is, and then there's like a long delay. So you're like kind of like overthinking like, all right, what is it? What is it? What is it? Because like, the month that comes before August is July. But I got it in my head for some reason that it was going to say September. I thought they were going to screw with me there. So I hit false, but what popped up on the screen was July. And I went, oh, and my brother also goes, oh man. And then we were both like, wait, did you say false? And they're like, we both presumed it was going to say something else. So so we both got it wrong. We both said that it is false that July comes before August. And but like it's just like dumb little fun games like that. There was another one where it was almost like the red light green light game from Squid Game, where there was like
childhood.
Or childhood. Yeah, you don't get gunned down in this one, but they play up like kind of like the zany factor of it. There's like a kid that's up against a tree, and like he's very huge smile, like it's almost like a creepy smile how big the smile is, and it's like a real kid. It's not like a cartoon or anything. It's like a real kid, and they're like, red light, green light, freeze, and whatever, and then like you have to like move your Joy-Cons like you're walking, and he'll turn around really fast, and it like the way that like the length of time that like his face is just plastered on your screen when like you're supposed to be frozen. Like I started laughing so hard that I actually shook the controller enough that it thought I moved, and I had to go back to the start. Like it's unsettling.
It sounds cool.
It's very zany in a lot of ways, and some of them are absolute hits. Like some of the ones I've talked about so far, but then there's the one like the alien one where it's a hit in the wrong way, because it has you like almost like holding your Joy-Con up against your chest and then throwing it straight up in the air and in rhythm with this chant that they're doing. And it's like, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh.
And
ah.
you're throwing it to like you.
No, not throwing it. But you're putting your hands up in the air, basically holding your hands like almost like cross-handed, and then holding the Joy-Con in it, and then straight up, and then straight down, and straight up, then straight down. And then you have to do it in rhythm. And then once like the aliens, that's like signaling to the aliens to come to you, and they land. And then as the aliens get to you closer, you have to instead take it and go back and forth to the rhythm. But we did it on our phones first. And that's the other mode, is that there's phone mode as well, and that has up to 100 player support. And it's almost like Jackbox, where everybody scans a QR code, you're in the room, and you can choose individual games, which ones you want to join and which ones you don't. And they split you into two teams. That's both modes split you into two teams. And on the phone mode, it's just all like the games are all based around the phone, but there are some that work with both. There's one that works with Joy-Con, and they're like, oh, we figured out a way to make this work with smartphones as well. So with that one, the Alien one, they had you press your thumbs in the middle of this screen, like on these two parts of the screen, and you're putting the phone up and down in the air. When we did it with the phones, we all looked down. We're like, why isn't it working? And we looked down because you're holding your phone and moving it around so much. We had all gone to different apps without realizing it. Like I was on Instagram and I'm like throwing my phone all around. My dad was on like a different website. Like I guess he had like hit like one of his favorites or his bookmarks and inadvertently. Right. And my mom had called somebody, so it did not go.
I mean, but that's that's kind of fun in its own way, right?
And it wasn't much better with the Joy-Con. Like it worked slightly better. We weren't able to finish it. Like it just like, all right, it's a draw. Nobody wins in the phone version. At least we were able to finish it in the Joy-Con mode because I guess like the motion sensing is a little bit better. We weren't going to different screens on our phones.
Okay, so if you're gonna play with
certain games I think are great on the smart device. There's one that's like it's almost like a variation on that samurai one where basically everybody, it almost reminded me of Nintendo Land, actually. Like in the Wii U where like you could on the Nintendo Land where you could like throw the ninja stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was that aspect of it where everybody had 3 ninja stars on their phone, and one player on the other team had a samurai, like the samurai sword, and their job was to deflect the incoming shurikens.
Okay.
And when they threw it, you heard a ting, and that's when you knew to swing the Joy-Con, and you had to basically swing it as they were throwing it, and your job as a person on the smart device was to kind of get their timing off and get it in there, and that was fun. That was a good use of it. There was another one where like everybody had their smart devices, and you're running an ice cream shop, and a rush of kids come in. They tell you what of the 4 flavors that they want. You have to take notes really quick, and they're like, I want chocolate, I want vanilla, I want choco vanilla swirl, and you had to like take notes of that. I want blueberry, and like at the end they're going to ask you like, all right, how many kids ordered blueberry? And you say, all right, 3 kids ordered blueberry. How many ordered chocolate plus how many ordered choco vanilla swirl? And you had to do that. And then, all right, how many kids were there in total? And like you had to answer questions like that. And that was an effective use of it. It didn't feel like forced. Mm-hmm. It's just certain ones, especially on the phone, didn't work out super great.
Okay. So yeah, but I mean like it's like goofy fun, right? Like that when it's successful and you're sort of laughing, like it's sort of like it's Jackbox-esque. Right?
Oh, 100%.
That's like sort of the positive impressions, the good times you had.
They lean into it so well. I will give them credit for that, where there are these like really funny, absurd moments, and they lean into it really, really well. They know how far to take a lot of them. Even like the demonstrations, they're like good natured, but they're also like, it's a little weird. Like, cause they'll have like real life people on the screen demonstrating what you're supposed to do. There was another one where it's like, you stood back to back, but not like touching, but like, like you were like 3 feet apart, back to back. You held your Joy-Con almost on like where your belt buckle would be. And you had to do a fighting game, but instead of like fighting each other, you were thrusting your butt back, and like you had to like on the screen, you were like fighting your basically your character's butts were fighting, and you could like push them off with sheer force, or you could wait for them to attack and then counter their attack. It was very weird, but like they know what they're doing in that sense, right? Like it's fun, it's absurd, and when it works, it is fun. It's a good time. I know I've said fun quite a bit here, but like that's really what it is. It's good natured and enjoyable. And
like if you have a group that's like, hey, let's play this silly thing, like that's kind of what you need.
Yeah, like if you have a group that you typically get together and play like stuff like, I mean, you would have gotten together on the Wii and played like WarioWare, or if you would have gotten together to play Jackbox on like a modern platform, this might be a good game for them. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the original, the big thing for me was like there weren't that many mini games. There were some interesting ones on there, but like the bad ones were really bad. And then like I think I just couldn't help but shake the sort of idea of like there's this new controller with all these new options. Why isn't this a WarioWare game? Right? Like that's almost like, and that's not really fair to that game to be like, why aren't you just this other thing that I want more? Right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, with a WarioWare around the corner that finally truly seems to take advantage of the Joy-Cons, right, coming up soon.
Yeah,
like it makes me. I mean, I gotta admit, like, I don't know how jazzed I could even be for this, just knowing WarioWare is right around the corner. You know,
there's a couple of other ones that take advantage of the hardware in ways that I never would have expected them to. There's one for the Joy-Con and one for the phone. The Joy-Con, it's literally called I think it's called Joy-Con Hide and Seek. And basically one team closes their eyes and the other team hides their Joy-Con somewhere in the room.
I like this. I like okay,
and
this is weird.
The once they're like, all right, the team is ready to find it, and you can push different buttons on your Joy-Con, the person who's seeking, and it has the hidden Joy-Con make different noises. So you can make it vibrate, you can make it make a kind of like a high-pitched squeal. And I don't know what that would tell you that's different from anything else, but like it's just like an interesting implementation. The downside of that is if you get too far away from the Switch, it disconnects. So it's like, all right, well, you can't have that many options.
Okay.
I couldn't like be in my basement, which is a pretty long basement, even though like the gaming area is pretty self-contained, but I couldn't like walk to the other side of the basement and hide it like under my computer desk or something.
Right.
So that is the downside of that. But like that was a fun one. And it's like you had to get creative. Like I actually put it inside of a drawer where like my parents had like storage of like a bunch of old like home movies. And I'm like, oh, they'll never find it here. And it did take them 53 seconds. My mom put it under the stuffed animal on the couch and I found it in literally 3 seconds. So,
but I like that kind of weirdo stuff that uses this controller in kind of a stupid way.
But even using the smartphone in interesting ways was something that I was not surprised, or I was not expecting, where they would have like, all right, here is, we're like fashion designers now, and they want us to have this like we want to find this particular color because that's like the hot color of the season, and they would show it up on screen, and you go around with your camera on your phone and try to take a picture of something in the room that's as close to that color as possible. And that's something that requires good lighting, as I found, because my parents' basement is not very well lit. And I was going around like I was like, oh, we need like this dark forest green, and they have a foosball table down there. And I took a picture of that, and it showed up as like black on the screen. I'm like, all right, well that didn't work out so well. But like, I think that if you had a well lit room, that would actually be a pretty cool game. So there's some interesting stuff that they are doing, and I'm wanting to play more. So that's a good sign, I guess.
a good sign, I guess.
Kyle, you'll have to come over and play some with me and see what you think. Because you have to have multiplayer. You can't just I can't play it by myself.
Yeah. I mean, the other sort of nice thing about it is it's $30, right? So it's not a full priced Switch game. Mm-hmm. It's not a $60 game. And I think I will get a copy and play with my kid, and then she'll have it for when her friends come over too. Like I think I'm gonna try it. I think I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, like it was a little bit too much for my nephews who are 4 and 2, but I think
that's maybe a little tough. Yeah, that age.
Older than that, they'll be good. I think like maybe that E10, not for content, but for like just understanding how the games work. E10 plus might be the age range for this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, that is out now, and I'm going to keep on playing that, maybe get a review out here in the coming weeks. But Kyle, we're going to take our last break of this episode, and when we get back, we're going to do definitive ranking and eShop gem of the week. We will be right back. We are back, and it is time for Definitive Ranking, a recurring segment where we take a Nintendo topic and give our personal top 5 lists. We are halfway through 2023. So Kyle, I want to get your top 5 games you're looking forward to through the end of this year. So start at 5, count it down to 1, give me a sentence or two about each. This is only going to be focused on games that are going to come to Switch. So keep that in mind when you give your top 5.
Cool. Number 5. I've already got asterisks here. You've got to love asterisks on
Nothing
on lists.
Thinking like asterisks.
So my number 5 is Pikmin 4. Right? Because it's not out yet, but I am playing it, right? So I don't know if that's cheating. I don't know if that counts, right? If it's like, can it be most anticipated if I'm playing it?
Well, I
don't
have
know what the
played
rules
2
are.
games on my list,
But
and I'm currently playing one of them. So
okay,
go for it.
My backup was Disney Illusion Island. I'm curious about that game. I've said a lot about Pikmin 4 already. Disney Illusion Island looks very Rayman-esque, Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends specifically. So, and I like Mickey. He's a cool guy that I want to be friends with.
And this lets you do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I still have some trepidation about that game, right? Like, the developer's last game, Battletoads, was like south of fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it had good animation, but I only played the first couple levels and I was like, I'm not really enjoying this. And Disney Illusion Island will live or die on how fun it is to run around and jump. And I don't know how fun it is to run around and jump yet because I haven't got my hands on it yet. But I like the way that game looks.
Well, a couple weeks ago, Wesley LeBlanc was talking about Disney Illusion Island, and he seemed pretty positive on it. So
yes, yeah, he did. I believe got to play it. I think
pretty sure he got his hands on it out at Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, I believe so. So yeah, cautiously optimistic about that one. Number 4, Sea of Stars.
I wanted to put that one on mine.
Yeah, the heavily inspired by Chrono Trigger RPG. It was on our cover, and I wrote that story. So as a result, I got to play like the first 5 or 6 hours of that game. I have played a lot of Sea of Stars, and I really like what I played. Like I was mad that I had to put it down and couldn't keep going because I was really enjoying it mechanically, and I wanted to see where I was going, and it looks great. Very excited for Sea of Stars.
Yeah, that one caught my eye. So I think I may have said this on the podcast before, but I actually was pre-briefed on that game, and it was like, I want to say the first week that we were in lockdown, like they reached out, they're like, hey, we have like this pre-brief opportunity for the next game from the Messenger developer. And it was just like me and the 2 guys that were like in charge of the studio or in charge of the game talking about it. And they were like in an empty room in their studio. And I was just on my computer that I'm recording this podcast on.
Yeah, now the norm,
this,
right?
this
but back
game.
then it was like, what is happening?
Yeah, it was so weird back then. Like that was like my first like remote interview was learning about the existence of Sea of Stars.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I've been excited about it ever since. And I think it only looks better every time I see it. Absolutely gorgeous animations, gorgeous art style. The music sounds great. And that's not even saying anything about the cool combat system.
Yeah, another game that there is a demo available, but they released it so early that I don't think it's one where progress would come forward, unfortunately.
I would bet the game even changed a little bit since they released that demo just because
undoubtedly. Yeah.
So far in the past.
Yeah.
All right, number 3.
Now, number 3, man, this might feel low, but Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
What?
Me. Yeah, I that game looks great. I can't wait to play it. I am not the biggest 2D Mario fan, right? Like if when it comes to Mario, I'm squarely like 3D. I get way more excited about 3D Mario than 2D, which I don't know if that might be blasphemy for some people. But
what's the best Mario game of all time?
Super Mario Galaxy.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I missed the boat on Super Mario World. I was playing Donkey Kong Country, like weird things like that. Wasn't an NES kid. New Super Mario Brothers was like just did very little for me. I played like the first one and I just like, this is okay. And then I love Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. I love that game, but it doesn't really, it feels a little different than a traditional Mario game.
What is your favorite 2D Mario game?
Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
I thought we were saying that was you. Haven't you in the past argued that that is squarely a Yoshi game and not a Mario game?
No, I'm on the other side of that argument
Okay.
because I asked Tezuka and he said, it is a Mario game.
Oh, all right. Well, then
Um,
I'm on that side of the argument as well.
but the thing that I'm saying is, it's semantics whether it counts as a Mario game, right? Like, does that even truly matter? But you can't deny that it does feel a little different than Mario.
It
Like
absolutely
you're throwing
does.
eggs and you're using your tongue. Like those are mechanics that don't exist in other Mario games. But this neither here nor there. I'm very excited for Super Mario Brothers Wonder. It's like the most drug addled Mario game to ever come into existence, and I'm very excited to play it. But personally, like the things that I like in Nintendo games and video games, I'm more excited for my number 2, WarioWare Move It. I love WarioWare. I specifically love WarioWare Shake It for the Wii. I played that game so much. That was like a multiplayer staple in my house. Like it was like sort of that it came out when I was in college. So I still had like roommates and stuff. And that
Or
was like the
not Shake It. Was it Shake It or was it Smooth
Oh,
Moves?
you're right. It was Smooth Moves. I was thinking of Wario Land Shake It. I was getting all confused. WarioWare Smooth Moves. Like I said, love WarioWare in nearly all its forms, and Smooth Moves was just like some of the most fun multiplayer experiences I had because it's like a game that you have to like play standing up and be silly and goofy, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's what I think everybody 1-2 Switch is sort of going for, right? But I just feel like Smooth Moves was a lot more successful, and yeah, I Move It just looks great. It looks like it's finally a WarioWare game that's using all the capabilities of the Joy Cons. I played and had a blast with the last WarioWare. I played it with my daughter, and we had a really good time and laughed the whole way through. But it was like more like a third person, like sort of 2D action game with on top of WarioWare in a
Yeah, it was
strange
less
way.
WarioWare than any WarioWare game that we've had in a while.
Yeah,
Probably
like
since DIY.
I enjoyed it. Like it was all right, but like I this looks more like kind of like we're gonna do crazy things with Joy Cons and mini games or micro games rather, and I'm very excited for it.
Which that is
I'm
what I wanted since before Game and Wario came out on Wii U.
yeah
I just
yeah
wanted
man yeah
a
Game of Wario.
successor to WarioWare Smooth Moves because, like you, that was just the game that when I was in college, I would have people over and we would just have a couple adult beverages and play WarioWare Smooth Moves until it was basically like we would play that for hours on end, and it
Hell
was so
yeah.
much fun, laughing until our sides hurt.
Yes, yeah, I'm glad you're on the same page there. Yeah, WarioWare Move It, very excited for that. And like I said, like if you put that in front of me in Super Mario Brothers Wonder, I mean, call me crazy, but I would grab Move It first. Just I mean, maybe it's the nostalgia for that time, but yeah,
Well, I will call you crazy, but continue. It's a good
yeah,
entry. It's
that's
a
fair.
good
That's
entry in
fair.
your list.
Yeah, and my number 1 again. This is like it's our list, right? Super Mario RPG is just very special to me. I full on did not understand turn-based RPGs when I was young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I would play Final Fantasy when I was, I'm talking like elementary school kind of age, and I just like didn't understand it. I was like, you're like walking around and then everything stops and then you have to select punch from a menu. Like I just like didn't get it. But when I played Super Mario RPG, like it all clicked for me. It's the first turn-based RPG that I finished, and I really love that game. And also, I just assumed Nintendo was like done with it. Like it was a weirdo relationship that was, they partnered with Square Enix to make this weird game that they acknowledge they'll put on the virtual console occasionally, but for the most part, they're like, yeah, I mean, we can't revisit that game. The characters are too weird. The world is
Mm-hmm.
too weird. So I was like blown away. I was really surprised when they announced that they were remaking it fully. And they're also seem to be approaching it in the way that I want, is like that they're just basically, it looks like they're just like updating the visuals, right? And adding like cutscenes to important story moments. But like the way the game, like, and this is all just based on like looking at this trailer a few times, like the structure of like moving around the level looks the same, the combat looks the same, like those elements of the game that I love and don't really need to see changed seem to be intact. And then the visuals have gotten a big upgrade. I'm just it's there's a lot of nostalgia there. There's a lot of personal, just like I said, that game's just important to me in a lot of ways. Like that stuff is all a factor there, where it's like it's a remake. Admittedly, it's not something new, and sometimes that's like lame, right? It's lame to put a remake as number one. But I want to revisit that game, and like I want to do it on Switch with those new visuals, and I'm very excited for it. Like when I put these lists together, I always think about like if you put those three these 5 games in front of me: Mario RPG, WarioWare, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Sea of Stars, Pikmin 4, Disney Illusion Island. The one I would grab first to check out first would be Super Mario RPG. Like that's the one I want to see and play the most. But I'm obviously very excited about for the other ones as well.
I mean, I think it's just because it was so unexpected. Like everybody kind of thought we'd get a new Mario game, whether it was a 2D or a 3D game.
Yeah, that's in the works, right? There's always something sort of in the background for that.
But the fact that we got a remake of a game that it just seemed like Nintendo flat out forgot about. And it wasn't even a Nintendo developed game. It was a Square Enix developed game, right?
Just Square even.
Or Square,
like,
I guess before Square Enix was an entity.
Which is just to timestamp it, really. I'm not like trying to correct you or anything. It's just like that's how long ago that game was,
And like it's never really acknowledged. Like everybody was like, "Oh, well, Gino's going to be in Smash," and nope.
Yeah, like they have like the outfits for Gino in Smash, and it was on the Wii U and Wii Virtual Console. But I truly was like, that's all we're getting.
It was on the SNES Classic as well.
Oh, it was? Oh, right. Yeah. Like I kind of always assumed Nintendo saw it as like a library curio, right? They're like, yeah, that's a thing. Like, you can check that out, but it's like, we're not gonna like to have a completely original game and a Mario, a completely original character to, Gino and like whole races of characters in like Mario games, which like historically I've heard Miyamoto often says like for the Mario RPG and Paper Mario games, he's like, you can only feature characters that appeared in Super Mario World. Like no new characters, even like Super Paper Mario, they had like a new characters, but they were like geometric shapes, right? Like you can't, you got to keep it simple. Like nothing can overshadow the Mario characters, where Mario RPG has like characters that like are bizarre and weird and look different and don't really align with Nintendo's typical Mario style. So I just thought that they were like, it was just never going to come back, but it is. And I'm very excited for it.
Well, that is a solid list. And I am shocked because only 2 games overlap on here.
Wow. I'm surprised. Okay.
Number 5 for me is WarioWare Move It. And all the reasons you said, it seems like a successor to my favorite WarioWare game, which was Smooth Moves on Wii. And I could not be more excited. I think that you and I are going to have to get together and play this game.
Yeah, I guess I gotta leave the house.
Well, I will happily host that gathering. I'm sure one of us will end up reviewing it, since we're both Smooth Move enthusiasts, which was a harder sentence to say than I thought it would be when I started it. Number 4, Persona 5 Tactica. And I think this might be purely on my love for Persona 5 carrying this, because I'm not the biggest tactics guy. I love like some of the staples like XCOM 2. That's one of my favorite tactical games of all time. Mario plus Rabbids is awesome. But I love Persona 5 so much that I'm excited for another adventure with those characters. And, if they can make a solid tactics game, I would happily spend another however many hours in that universe, because I just love those characters and I want to be on another adventure with them. So that's why that's number 4 for me. Number 3 and number 2 might feel like cheating. Number 3 is a game that's coming to Switch, but I'm not playing it on Switch. That is Mortal Kombat 1. And
yeah, I mean maybe I'll dabble with the Switch version, right, to try it out, see how it runs.
If we want, and do you want me? I'll give an asterisk on this one. If we want to trade it out for one that I will likely play on Switch, then I'll put Sonic Superstars there instead.
Okay, yeah.
That I played it at Summer Game Fest. It played super well, and there's co-op in it. There's cool powers that you can do. The gameplay feels super tight, and it plays better than any other attempt at modernizing the 2D genre outside of Sonic Mania in terms of Sonic games. So Yeah, Sonic Superstars, but also Mortal Kombat 1 is a game I'm going to play probably on like PlayStation or Xbox, but that was also a game that I had a really great time playing at Summer Game Fest. And I don't know, maybe the Switch version will be fine because they're having the same company that made the Switch version of Mortal Kombat 11, which seems like it ran perfectly okay.
Yeah, and these are not, they're not cloud games, right?
Correct.
See, that's nice. Okay. I would rather it, it's just dumb. Maybe it's dumb, but like I would rather take a visual hit um than play a cloud version, you know?
Yeah. I would agree with you 100%. I told Ed Boon in my interview from I guess it was a month ago now on this podcast feed. If it was a cloud version, I would be like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to play on PlayStation. I'm good. But the fact that it's local is like, oh, maybe I do want that on the go. Because like if it's a cloud version, if I'm on a plane, I cannot play Mortal Kombat 1 if it's a cloud version. If it's local, as Ed told me on the interview, then I can play it on the plane. And that's the biggest thing for me. Otherwise, it's like, why would I have the visual compromise if I can't take advantage of having the main reason you get a game on the Switch when it's multi-platform, which is the mobility.
Yeah, I mean, and even like there is that the plane argument, right, which I think is totally valid, if a bit elitist, Brian, flying all over, like some kind of CEO that you are. You do a lot of
Yeah.
travel for this job, so it actually makes a lot of sense for you. But I just like, I have good internet in my house. I'm happy with my speed and stuff like that. But like there is no denying that like the Wi-Fi is just inconsistent. Like I can buy the best Wi-Fi routers and I can have the best internet, but there's just going to be the occasional hiccup, and it's just always going to drive me crazy. It's just I don't know how to avoid it, you know?
Well, at least we have Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 as cloud games on the Switch. So stupid.
That's such a bummer.
Number 2, again, might feel like cheating because it's been out for almost a year now, maybe even longer than that. Vampire Survivors.
Right, that's a good entry. I like that, honestly. Yeah.
I'm so excited to have a full version of that on the go because that's actually how I passed my time. So I was on the plane yesterday. I was Wednesday. We're recording this on a Thursday. I was on a plane Wednesday afternoon. I was trying to play Tears of the Kingdom on my Switch because I had brought my Switch to my parents' house because I was playing Mario Kart and everything. I packed 2 Pro controllers. I was trying to play Tears of the Kingdom in handheld mode, and for some reason, I guess the bumpiness of the plane kept making it so the Pro controller that was in my carry-on kept activating, and the Switch kept trying to connect to that, so I couldn't do that. I couldn't use my Switch because like the seatbelt sign was illuminated most of the ride, so I couldn't even like get up to really fix it without the flight attendant yelling at me. So I was like, I'm just gonna put my Switch away. And what I did was I played Vampire Survivors on my phone, which is fine. It runs well. It plays just fine. It's just the touchscreen controls just don't feel as precise as you sometimes need in that game. And I got overwhelmed a few times where I was like, I could have probably made out of that if I was on like a controller. And I know that most of the time, 99% of the time when I'm flying with my Switch, I'm fine because I don't have my Pro controller packed and it's not getting activated by my iPad or whatever is in
that's such a funny bummer that it's like your Pro controller kept going like, oh hey, did you want to play? No, oh okay, you don't want to play. Okay, I'm sorry.
Like I was trying to explore the depths and I was trying to like glide around, and it's like every like 20 seconds it kept going to that like controller select screen of like, oh, you want to play with the Pro controller? Okay, and I'm like, no, handheld mode, and eventually I just gave up. But yeah, so having a competent stick-based version, tactile control-based version of Vampire Survivors to be able to take on the go, because I don't have a Steam Deck, that would be a game changer for my travel, because you can lose hours upon hours playing that game. And it's like I said a couple weeks ago when I was coming back from Summer Game Fest, and I was like, Tears of the Kingdom is like a time travel device when you're on a plane, because like you just get lost. It's like I was playing it and then I looked up and it was like, oh, it's been 2 hours and I've been playing this game and now, we're almost done with this flight. I feel like Vampire Survivors would be that same way. So that's why it's my number 2 on this list. And then number 1, don't have to go into it too much, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. New 2D Mario game that takes some chances. It's giving us new mechanics, giving us a new art style. It's not New Super Mario Brothers, whatever. That was starting to feel so vanilla. Like the 1, 2, and Wii felt so novel, and then while such a good game, like mechanically and everything, it just looked and felt exactly like the Wii version, and it was like, this just feels like a remake. And then they remade it again for Switch. So I don't know. Like, I'm
Yeah,
glad they're
man,
taking some chances with this.
that series just has never done it for me. I don't know. Like none of those Marios. Like I finished the first one on DS. And like every other subsequent release, like I maybe play the first couple levels. I'm like, I'm good.
it just doesn't feel as, I don't know, exciting as the NES and SNES Mario games did.
Sure. Yeah.
Mario Brothers Wonder gives me that sense, and hopefully it feels that way when I actually get to play it. It gives me that sense of like, okay, this is something new, and this is a different art style. Because that was what was so cool about the Mario games in the early days, right? Where it was like every single game had a different art style.
Yeah.
And of course,
yeah.
it was all unified in Mario All-Stars if you got that package. But like that was just a special bundle. The fact that they had, Mario 1 looked distinct from Mario 2 USA, at least. Mario 2 USA looked different from Mario 3, and then Mario World and Yoshi's Island all looked so different from one another, and it felt good in that way. I think that if they did one or even just 2 games with that art style of New Super Mario Brothers, it would be looked back on as a very cool thing. And even people would probably be like, oh, I wish we'd get another game in that art style because that was so cool. But it felt like they just kind of were resting on their laurels with the art style and with like kind of the creativity of that sub-series. And that this feels like this is like the next evolution of that. And that's why I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. No, the big thing for me is just how expressive he seems to be, and like the way he moves and like, changes his positioning when he's at the apex of his jump and stuff. Like, yeah, that stuff all looks great. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So as we covered in this, so many great games on the horizon. But Kyle, we're going to end the episode as we have traditionally done, looking back at a game that's already out that maybe people missed, and that is the eShop Gem of the Week. I am going to give my pick this week, and that is Gato Roboto. Have you played this game?
Brian, I reviewed this game.
Oh, so you and I can share in the joy of Gato Roboto. It is a Metroidvania in kind of like the Game Boy style of like visuals. I think you can even choose like your color palette and everything, but it's just a Metroidvania where you're a little cat running around, jumping in a mech, and you get different powers and open up different paths. It's traditional Metroidvania in that sense, but with a feline twist. So what else did you like about Gato Roboto?
You're a cat with a mech suit, and then a lot of the game is like jumping out of the mech suit to have more maneuverability. But then in the mech suit, you have, like health and, weapons and stuff like that. There's this, it's just the one thing I always remember about Gato Roboto that I like is in the narrative that the story of the game is that you're a pilot, you crash land on a planet, and then you have a pet cat and you're like stuck in the rubble, and the pet cat goes out and does tasks to try to save you.
I forgot about that.
And you have these conversations with the cat. Where the astronaut is like, you need to go to this level and flip this switch, and then he'll be like, I actually don't know if you're listening to me because you're a cat, but I'm just going to keep telling you to do stuff, and things seem to be happening. So I just always like that little twist of the game is the astronaut like is reliant on the cat for help, but the cat is ultimately like what we would consider a normal cat, where it's just like, the guy's just like, well, I hope you're doing these things I'm asking you to do because I would like to get out of here alive.
So it's a super enjoyable game, especially if you love Metroidvania. As Kyle indicated, there's a good amount of humor in it as well. Running around as the cat outside of the mech actually feels really good too. And I like that mechanic of like, all right, sometimes you're just riding around in the mech, you have all these powers, and other times you're just like this kind of defenseless little cat that's trying to open up new pathways so the mech can get through. But it's only $8, which is a major selling point. I think it was just recently on sale for $2. I know it's, as of this recording, on sale on Steam for only $2. So that's that's a no-brainer right there.
Because it's not, and this is I say this as a positive thing. It's also not very long. I think it's like 3 or 4 hours. And which is it gets in and out in like the perfect amount of time. So yeah, good recommendation for sure.
And it came out in 2019. I think it's on other platforms now. I think originally it was just Switch and Steam. I think it has since made its way at least to Xbox. I believe it was on Game Pass for a while, if not still on there. So there's plenty of options if you want to check it out. It's a great Switch game because, as I indicated before, it kind of emulates that Game Boy visual style. And it's, I don't know, it's just a really, really good Metroidvania game, and it's bite-sized as well, which is nice, and it's very affordable. So check it out if that sounds appealing to you. But Kyle, thanks so much for joining me for this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you so much to everyone for listening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, throw All Things Nintendo a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button. If you want to get any questions or comments in, you can get in touch with me at allthingsnintendo@GameInformer.com or hit me up on Instagram at Brian Pichet. I'm also on Blue Sky and Threads now, so you can follow me there. I'm at Brian Pichet on both of those. You can also join the Game Informer Community Discord, which is a perk for subscribing to our Twitch channel, even just for 1 month. Kyle, tell people something about your online presence.
Yeah, still poking around Twitter, but yeah, Blue Sky is the one I'm sort of focusing on mostly these days. Kyle Hilliard on there. No, usually I have an M in the middle, but I was able to drop the M for Blue Sky. I did sign up for Threads last night, man, but I don't know. It's just another one of those things. Follow me wherever.
It's hard to keep up with all. It's like, what am I going to do? Just post on all of these, like copy paste everything to both, and then hopefully one of them prevails, and we can just stop that.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm sort of leaning Blue Sky. Like,
so am I.
Seems to be where people are moving, and so we'll see. We'll see. I would love to get away from Twitter, though. That'd be great.
I did it months ago and have not regretted it once. Aside from losing my 10.5 thousand followers, that's the only downside to, because now it's like I look at my following on Blue Sky and it's like 200, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you got to build that back up.
But that is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We will see you next time.